on FM. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, it is 4 minutes after the hour of 8 o'clock. And as promised, we promised our listeners and all the other media houses in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and across the region, which have consented to carry this broadcast live. We have in studio with us Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Ralphie Gonsalves. And joining us via Zoom this morning is Dr. Richard Robertson, who will be joining us on Zoom this morning. Professor Robertson. Gentlemen, good morning and welcome back to the studios of NBC.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Prime Minister Gonsalves, good morning and welcome back.
Good morning. Good morning, Richie. This is our second conversation. We had one earlier today.
Yes, indeed.
I understand that some people are calling this the Richie and Ralph show. We're with each other every day now. We have to keep our humor amidst all this serious work we are doing. Very glad to have you this morning, Richie.
Thank you.
Dr. Robertson, let's begin with you. We spoke to you just before 2 o'clock or so this morning. And at that time, we were looking at how all the various hazards were combining to produce a totally different situation and dynamics altogether as it relates to what was happening at the Soufriere volcano. If we can begin at this particular point, what has changed from since then and what has happened?
Right. I think I'll just give a summary in terms of what's happened overnight. The last time we reported was late last evening. And what has happened in the last 12 hours, we've continued to record episodes of tremor. These episodes of tremor normally last about 20 minutes. And there's an interval between them. The interval between them range from about 1.5 hours to about 3 hours. So since last evening, we've had these tremor episodes, and in between, there's a period of about hour and a half, and to 3 hours. Now, the periods of tremor seems to be associated based on visual observations we have from the observatory. We could see and hear things, as well as satellite imagery, with periods of explosive activity, or what we call enhanced venting. It's periods when there are small or different size explosions that push things up into the air, and also periods when you have a lot of ash, enhanced venting, which material going up in the air. And that's been going on for the whole night, more or less. It's continuing now, in fact, as I speak. We are currently into one of those periods in between the venting between the tremor episodes. Now, within recent times, since midnight, we've also begun to record some of these PT earthquakes that we have had before. Now, from what we could see, and from what we have from all reports, the result of all these explosions and all the venting is that you've had a lot of ash dumped in areas occupied in St. Vincent. Certainly in Belmont, there was heavy ashfall throughout the night whenever you have these venting episodes. These tremor episodes, sorry.
That's Belmont. That's Belmont in the west, northwest. Yes.
Belmont close to Rosal, close to Chomaka, which is one of the best places to see the volcano from. In fact, but we've heard that you've had ash really basically all over St. Vincent. And we've spoken about the problems of the ash before, but the amount of ash that has fallen is now being sufficient to cause trees in Belmont to break. The weight of the ash on the natural vegetation is very heavy, and therefore we would not be surprised if the weight of the ash on structures, on buildings, which is in these areas, buildings that are on communities on the volcano itself, that the roofs are going to be really inundated, and probably the roofs are going to fail, and you're going to have a lot of property damage just simply because of the ash fall. That is really unfortunate, but I suspect as you go further south, it's going to be less of an impact, but certainly the environment has been really damaged badly by the heavy ash fall, and people's property and structures would probably become damaged because the ash. Now, in addition to the activity overnight, we've got evidence that they were actually also, not necessarily from the overnight activity, but from a previous explosive eruption, that you began to have these pyroclastic flows that I would have mentioned before, where instead of the material going up in the air, it collapses on itself and goes on the mountainside and basically destroys everything in its path. It seems that, so far we had not observed them from the observatory, but there is evidence that they have occurred. There's one on a video that we got access to that happened on the leeward side. What that tells us is that in addition to the eventing that's happening, these kinds of things can now happen and are beginning to happen, which means that the volcano itself, the mountain Soufriere, and any communities there, not only would they have had to survive the heavy ash, but now they have the potential of being destroyed by these flows that go down the mountainside. They're going to go down the valleys, but these things are not like the ash that destroy things, but that damage things by the weight. These flows really are moving masses of destruction. They just destroy everything in the path. If you have the strongest house in the world, they will just bulldoze it off the ground. So it means that the amount of devastation you're probably going to have, unfortunately, on the volcano itself, when this thing is stopped and we go back and see, is going to be significant, not only because of the ash, but because of these flows that could go down the mountainside. The activity that we have now, there's no indication on the instrumentation or what we're seeing that it's waning, that it's going towards the end. So I would love to tell you that it looked like this is all we have to sustain this last couple of days, but I can't tell you that. It's likely that, at some point it's put quieten down, and hopefully there will be a break so that we could recover a little bit more. But don't be surprised if after the break it picks up again and you have another period like this, shorter, and then it might be another break and it picks up again. The activity pattern that we have currently ongoing is more similar to a 1902 type of eruption, of that kind of scale, rather than a 1979 scale. I think some people who have lived through 1979 know the kind of eruption you had. From what we are seeing, the kind of way it's behaving, it looks more like a 1902 eruption. What does that mean? That means that it's probably, unfortunately, going to cause more damage and destruction to St. Vincent. But it also means that, there will always be a safe place in the southern part of the country, which might have a lot of ash every now and then, but you can still sustain life and limb. And that is not going to, which is what we all worry about. It's going to get so big that it's going to destroy the whole country. That currently doesn't seem to be the case. But so that's in summary. It's in terms of updates. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything that I might have missed. I usually have lots of questions for me, so
yes,
I think we'll bring them all to the questions.
Richie.
Yes.
In respect of the pyroclastic flows, which you have always said is the most dangerous of all, the outpourings that you can have from La Soufriere. Can you elaborate a little bit on that and what that entails and what it means and why it is so dangerous? And is there any sense in which scientifically we can say what is likely? I know sometimes when I ask you these questions is as I want to imbue you with the foresight of a Hebrew prophet. but in these circumstances, you're the closest we have to that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prime Minister. I don't think I have that kind of wisdom, but yeah, I can tell you what I know. Okay, so as I tried to explain before, pyroclastic flows, they're also called pyroclastic density currents, are a particular kind of phenomena that occurs at volcanoes like ours that when they erupt explosively. And what is simply involved is that, if you think of it, when the volcano explodes, it's breaking up bits and pieces of rock. It has a lot of gas in it. You have different fragments of rock, different size of rock. You have boulders that are as big as 1 meter, as tall as many meters. It could be as small. So you have various sizes of pieces of material, and when it explodes, it breaks them up. Now, usually it breaks them up and it pushes them up in the air, right? So that's where you have the plume of ash, and in fact, some of them when it breaks them up, the rock itself just get pelted off the crater and they fall back on the land, and we call those ballistics, just like shooting guns. So the ballistics, and they fall back. Most of it goes up in ash. Now, all that stuff that is going up in the air, as well as some of the ballistics, sometimes instead of going up in the air because it doesn't quite have the energy to carry it as high up as it has been doing. Our plumes have been going up to 15, 17 kilometers high, right? So instead of going up in the air, what happens is that it can't hold itself up in the air. The material is going up there and moving up in the air very fast. It collapses on itself. And when it collapses on itself, it's in a process that we call column collapse. It then moves down the mountainside. This same material that has a lot of gas in it, has bits and pieces of rock. It moves on the mountainside and tends to hug the valleys. And it consists of a number of parts. The part that is in the valley itself has a lot of boulders. So you have a lot of boulders that's rubbing along the valley. In a similar kind of way like you have a river, but moving much faster. And above it, well, in front of it, there's a wave of ash called a surge. It's like, if you think of a hot, heavy wind. So you have a heavy part, that's in the main part, and then you have a wind that's stretching out in front and to the side. And above it, you have a rising column of ash, just like in the plumes. So if you visualize that, so you have something that is shooting down the mountainside. It's going faster than bolt. It's going at 100, 200 kilometers per hour speed, kind of, right? So it's really going fast. Fortunately, it stays in the valley, but sometimes it spreads over to the surrounding higher parts. But when it meets anything in the valley, whether it is trees, cars, buildings, it has enough force that it pushes them out of the way, destroys them, and keeps going. It has so much force that more than likely, when it gets to this, it has so much force, so much energy, and so much heat, when it gets to the sea, to the coastline now, it gets to the sea, you would think that when it gets to the sea, you would think that, wait, the sea would cool it down. What happens is that it's so hot that it then boils the top of the sea. It causes the top of the sea to get hot. And it then creates a cushion of bubbles that it then starts moving even faster and shoots across the sea. And in fact, it only runs out eventually. So these pyroclastic flows, when they come to the sea, you will tend to see them, they will boil the sea. And they will shoot across the sea as a foam of rapidly moving hot air. And they will stall anything in the way. These are how our flows operate. We don't have lava flows, the nice, slow, runny things that's red and glowing. We don't have those things here. What we have is fragments of rock and boulders and other things that shoot on the mountainside very fast and destroys everything. Those are our kind of flows, and they are called pyroclastic flows or pyroclastic density currents. That's what we have, and that's one of the most dangerous things from our kind of volcano. The ash is dangerous because it dumps everything, but those are the things that if you're in the path, anything in this part will kill you. Those are the things that, for example, would have killed people in 1902. So it means that anybody on the mountain now, anybody on the volcano, and we don't know where these things will collapse, because of how the plumes are going, because of how the ash is going, the collapse could happen anywhere around the top. So the plume is coming from a center, the collapse could happen anyway. So it could happen that goes towards Fancy, it could happen it goes towards Oya, it could happen it goes towards Sandy Bay, it could happen and goes towards Larakai, Balen, Wallabu. It goes all the way around. So any of the valleys particularly, and sometimes the areas above the valleys, could become really places that anything inside there will be destroyed. So
what you said, Richie,
yeah.
what you said about when they go into the sea and they have the energy still and they will move in the waters, that means if these pirogues or any vessel, they'll create difficulties for them.
Yeah, yes, indeed. And in fact, if you, I would suggest that if you're on the sea and you see what it looks like when you're in the sea or when you're seeing them, they look harmless. They look like they're moving, they look like a very fast moving cloud that moves on the mountainside. They look like a billowing cloud that is just suddenly coming on the mountainside. So when you see them, they look real. It just looks like clouds. So if you're out to sea, if you're not more than a mile or two out to sea, and you see one of them things coming down, coming into the sea, you need to move out because they will come to the boat and they will destroy the boat too. They burn the boat. In fact, there are stories from 1902 where people who were offshore the Wallabu River, when the pyroclastic flows came down, they were actually offshore too close. So they jumped into the sea and they tried to dive, and they think the water above them was boiling. Some of them came up and they got their skin scald. Some of them didn't survive. Stories occur. So it's not just on the land alone, but at least a mile out, I would think, out away from the land, the danger is from these flows. So if you're a craft, if you're somebody sightseeing, you shouldn't be. If you're a fisherman flying those areas and you see one of those things coming down to the sea, go out to sea and get away from them, and you should be okay.
Now, let me ask this. You know, last night we had from maybe 10:30 or thereabouts.
Yeah.
We had the electrical system, the VINLEC system, the power system out.
Yeah.
Because of the volcanic ash.
Yeah.
I know Townley Myers came on the radio, but can you say Townley Myers of VINLEC to explain what happened?
Yeah.
But can you say what is the impact of that ash which will take place in electrical terms when they hit the high tension wires?
Right. I mean, I am not an engineer, so I'm kind of slightly out of my depth. But essentially, what the fine ash does, if it accumulates sufficiently, it provides contact points between different kind of electrical parts. First of all, it will weigh down the wires themselves because they're really heavy. But at the contacts between different electrical circuits, it could cause sparking and that kind of thing. So the ash is a conductor essentially, and if you put a conductor in between things that shouldn't be touching, essentially they allow them to touch, and they could cause problems. So because of the heavy ash, certain parts of the electrical system would have come under tremendous pressure, and I mean it wasn't totally surprising to me that you then had what happened, which was the blackout, because it was just a matter of time. If you have too much and too heavy ash, that is going to start causing problems to electricity, to water supply, to various other things.
What would the ash be doing to the motor vehicle engines? Because motor vehicles are driving up and down still. We have to drive.
Yes. So that's actually quite important. Again, when you think of all this ash, think of your ingesting. I mean, you shouldn't. You find bits of grit and rock and not just rock, but crystals. Hard crystals that are very corrosive. So it's recommended now, especially when you have this ash environment, to check your oil, check your engine more regularly than you do, because you might want to have to flush out things because you basically have all these very fine particles getting into places that they're not designed to deal with. These very fine, essentially, is like having little bits of glass and not even glass is kind of a bad term in terms of glass is not as resistant as some of the materials are in the volcanic ash. If you're having these fine things getting into engines that have delicate parts, you want to check to get them out. So you should really be checking your engines more frequently now, more regularly, to make sure, and changing oil if necessary, to make sure that these things are not in. Checking them and changing more frequently your systems, your oil, to make sure that they're not in there and don't damage the engine.
Now, yesterday, you accorded me the privilege, at my request, to follow you all the way to Rabaka.
Yes.
And one of the central reasons for your mission, and you can explain what are the others, but I believe one of the central reasons is that you're collecting samples of ash. I saw you at work, you and your team. What is the purpose of this, and what are we going to do with that ash, and what we are likely to learn from what analysis you do with the ash?
Yeah. Well, we were doing a number of things. It's important, first of all, to what we call characterize the ash for health purposes and for sort of volcanological, geological purposes. We want to, in other words, understand better what the ash contains for health purposes, because sometimes volcanic ash has harmful potentially harmful things to human beings, quite apart from the physical size and the fact that you're breathing in dust. Volcanic ash potentially has in very fine particles that human lungs don't like. So we're collaborating with colleagues overseas to look for elements in the ash that may have implications for health. And of course, we'll share that information with the government and with the health authorities so they know. That's one thing. So we want to characterize it and understand it better in the context of its potential health impacts. The other thing that we're looking at is not just the ash, but basically the fallout, everything that falls from the sky. Because everything that falls from the sky is coming from the volcano. So if we analyze it geochemically, see what comprises it, it will tell us a little bit more about that stuff. Remember, we had sampled the dome. The dome was this first part. Well, the dome gone now. What we're having now is new material, and we essentially the ash and the composition gives us an indication of what that new material is and tells us about probably where it's coming from, how much it might be, and therefore tells us something about the chances of the eruption going on. And then the other thing that we're doing is picking up. So we're analyzing the chemistry for health purposes, but also for volcanological purposes. But also we're looking at the sizes of the fragments, the sizes of the material and where it goes. The size of the material and where it goes and its composition tell us about what is the potential in terms of risk to areas outside. So it tells us how far a particular fragment might get to, a particular size of rock might get to, depending on what kind of eruption or what size of the eruption it is. And that helps, for example, to know, well, if you have an eruption of a particular size, an explosion, that you're possibly going to have a certain size rock get into, say, Georgetown versus Connery, and that has implications for the hazard, the risk of the hazard and the risk, therefore, to people who live in these areas. So that helps us now in terms of this eruption that's going on, but it helps us in understanding future eruptions and applying it to the rest of the region because, I'm part of the Seismic Research Center. We monitor earthquakes and volcanoes throughout the Eastern Caribbean. So it's important that we use what's happening now to help us both in providing advice about this, what's going on, but also in trying to deal with other things that other places that may have similar kind of crises, and so be able to better give advice as needed.
No, go ahead. You were asking something.
Dr. Robertson, now that the rain has started falling, what are the? Oh, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing, and there's a slight bad aspect of it, because now what we have is a lot of loose material on the ground, right? We want to get it off the ground, and that's good. That's a good part. We want to get rid of it. We want it to get into the sea, get into the rivers, and go away, so it don't affect us. The slightly bad part is that we have so much of it. We have so much of it that if and when it gets into the rivers and the drainage and stuff like that, it could cause flooding of areas. So therefore, it might produce some negative impact, right? But and I say this, and I apologize for anybody that might be affected by flooding, but I think in my humble opinion that it's better currently for it to go with plenty of water rather than for it to stay. And therefore, even though it has a chance of a risk of doing some damage, it will do much more damage if it stays on the land and stays on the roofs and things like that. So as much as you could get rain in this country now, and plenty rain over the next few days, next few hours, that's the best thing that could happen.
No, let me ask this. When the material is washed off the road, because coming from the PM's residence now, along the road in Kingston, you see less of it on the road because much of it is washed off. Yeah. What about that's going in the drain? What would it do in the drain?
Yeah, I mean, it's depending on how much of it. As I was saying, it could clog the drains and it could cause some kind of flooding. It could cause blockages. I suspect a lot of it is really loose so far in most of the country. The bits that are really hard and more likely to cause blockage are the bits that are more on the volcano itself. So the volcano itself would have bigger fragments, bigger pieces of rock, and they're going to have these mud flows or lahars. Remember earlier in the eruption, there was this big scare about lahars. Well, if you have rain today, you're going to have lahars in the valleys on the volcano itself. You might have flooded rivers in other parts, but I suspect that the materialize in the south of the country is really very fine. And it's probably not going to cause too much of a blockage, but it might cause the river to get a little bit swollen, certainly in the south. The areas that I would expect, if any damage to happen from the runoff of the material, is probably going to be on the volcano, where you have bigger fragments, and therefore you're going to have a lot more thick river and damage that the river could do. So I don't think, we shouldn't have any problem with it running off on the southern part of the country.
Dr. Robertson, Barbados, St. Lucia, they've been affected by the ash, and I saw a report that Grenada now, they're now trying to determine if it is really ash. If you can speak to that as well.
Okay. Yeah. Well, one of the underestimated hazards in the region, and in fact, I'm hoping, if I may just speak about earlier on, let's compare me to the prophets, but we at Seismic have been...
Well, not so much with the prophet, with the foresight of a Hebrew prophet.
Right.
I wouldn't call you a Hebrew prophet.
Okay, all right, good. So I was saying that we've been making a point that volcanic ash hazard is not properly understood or dealt with in the region. I think this volcanic eruption and the impact of the ash, because it's putting out so much ash into the atmosphere, would illustrate that. And I hope that the resources and the attention that is needed to better understand it, quantify it, and therefore respond to it will be put to bear. Because we have a lot of aviation traffic in the region. We have a lot of other islands. We all tend to think that when the volcano in St. Vincent erupt is mainly St. Vincent's problem, or if it's in Grenada, it's Grenada's problem. The fact is that we are all on islands, and these volcanoes, when they erupt, they're going to affect all the islands. You don't have to have a volcano in your island like Barbados realizing to have volcanic ash. It's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. So the good part is that eventually the ash works into the soil, and St. Vincent benefits from that, benefits from the positive impact of the ash in future years. The bad thing is that when it's happening now, it has some negative impacts that you have to respond to. But in that regard, those islands around us, close to us, further afield, get ready for some ash, because we're producing a lot, and you're probably going to get some.
And what can we expect today, Dr. Robertson, in terms of what can we expect to see today? Would there be less ash, or would there be an intensification of such?
I think from what we've seen, you're going to have more of the same. Now, whether or not the ash comes south really depends a lot on how much comes out and how the wind is going. If we get some rains, that would help. It will help to get the ash that's suspended in the atmosphere out of the way. It will help to get it off the road. So when the next bit of ash comes, it's not that impact. But I would say it's most likely that you're going to have more of the same, certainly in the northern part and in the volcano. The extent to which you have more of the same in the south would depend a lot on how much ash and how much the wind is blowing to the south.
What I just want to ask this: what likelihood that we're going to see any generalized pattern of pyroclastic flows? Is that something going to be episodic, or you think it can become generalized?
Right. I mean, from what we are seeing so far, currently, with the way in which the volcano is operating, it looks like you're going to have more of the ash problem going up in the air than the pyroclastic flow problem. And more than likely, you are going to have pyroclastic flows, but they're probably not going to affect all the valleys around. They're probably going to affect some of the valleys. And as I've always said, is that the only prime valleys that it always tends to affect is the Larakai Valley, because that's your lowest slip. But any of the other valleys, the upper parts of Rabaka, I would be surprised if a flow goes down that. Whether or not it comes all the way to the sea, probably less likely. But certainly the upper parts of some of the other rivers. Whether they get to the sea, is touch and go. But it's not going to be so much, it's going to be episodic, it's going to be related to the same venting periods. So the flows are going to happen whenever you have the plumes happening, because they're related to each other. So whenever you have, as much as you continue to have the explosions, putting things up in the air, you're going to have the flows going down the valley, potentially. You tend to probably have less of the flows and more of the ash, given what we're seeing now going forward.
Prime Minister, you've got a final or?
Well, I think we have had quite a thorough briefing from my brother Richie, who has been doing a fantastic job.
Dr. Robertson, just before you go, I'm just seeing a comment. I know you addressed this last night, but I see a lot of persons asking about it, so I would. The lightning, the intense lightning, and the rumblings, sorry. I think persons would like you to speak about that as well.
Right. So, and you reminded me that I had to make a comment about something else that somebody wrote to me I should mention. First,
okay.
The lightning happens because what the volcano is doing is essentially producing a lot of charged fine particles into the atmosphere. And one of the ways in which lightnings happen generally in any kind of cloud is because you have charged particles in it. What we're doing when we create eruption plumes and when you have explosion is that we tripling, doubling that many times. So it means that now we have a lot of these particles in the atmosphere that has charges in them and that wants to discharge onto the ground or between each other. And that as much as you have them in the atmosphere, you can have lightning. The interesting thing that we saw last night was that the lightning wasn't just happening above the volcano in the plume, the stuff that is going up. But because the volcano had produced so much ash all around, we were seeing lightning, for example, in the valley by Pitibedel or the valley by down close to the coastline at Chateaubriand, where it's not at the volcano, but because you have so much fine particles that are charged in the atmosphere, the lightning is formed. Now, when the lightning happens, we know when you have lightning, you have thunder. So when you have an eruption, when you have one of these periods of heightened activity, where you have a lot of charged particles, you're going to have a lot of rumbling. So I understand that some people have heard the rumbling further south. So, in Connery, probably as far as, I don't know if anybody in Bio will be surprised.
Yes, there were reports of it in Bible.
Because all you need is the charged particles. So I wouldn't be surprised if you have enough ash in the atmosphere that people in Kingston, anywhere in St. Vincent, they might not. The thing is that if it's dark and depending on where the flashes happen, you may not see the flash of the lightning, but you would hear the rumbling. The thing I want people to realize, and which just comes back to the comment I was going to make, which people have this idea, is that the volcano is up in the north. The volcano is Soufriere. And that is the only volcano that is going to be erupting, that is erupted. The fact that you have the lightning and the rumbling close to you, Bayabu, in Espo, in Kingston, it don't mean a volcano erupting there. The volcano is up in the north, still erupting. And that's the only place it's going to erupt. So don't worry about the fact that something going to break and open down the south. That has always been a thing that people think about. Don't know why, because I don't know if you want to make it worse than it actually is, but it's not happening. So the fact is, St. Vincent's volcano that's erupting is in the north. The volcano that will erupt, that can erupt, is in the north at La Soufriere. We know that because we have studied the rocks. We know that all the volcanoes in the south, they're all dead. The volcanism migrated to the north. All rocks are in the south. We know that from studies. And just like how I could speak to you about what Soufriere is doing based on our studies, I can tell you for sure that there's no volcano in the south, or no place in the south, that magma is going to punch through the surface anytime in our lifetime, or probably in anybody's lifetime in the future. So don't worry about that.
So while the rumblings and the lightning would play on our minds, the real thing is the ash and possibly the pyroclastic flows.
Exactly. That is exactly so. And the pyroclastic flows are going to affect the areas on the volcano itself. For example, I would not expect a pyroclastic flow to go down in Kingston. That's not going to happen. It is on the mountain itself.
Yes.
You have the flows happening.
I understand.
The ash, on the other hand, the ash could get to Kingston, as it's doing, but not the flows. So the nasty things are on the volcano. The things that are less nasty, the ash, which we think is not nice now because it's getting to us in the south, can't get anywhere. Depends on the wind. It can get anywhere in the world, in fact.
But you maybe you can give a description as to how we saw from, let's say, Connery, where the ash, we had seen it coming up, but the bulk of it we saw from Connery going straight up to Rabaca as far as we reach, and just to indicate, we drove over the bridge just to turn, have enough space for the convoy to turn, and we got out back there quickly and came south of the river, south of the bridge. The it looks, even in the area where you still have one or two persons about, say, Langley Park and Georgetown, and also in Byron and Connery, the place looks desolate.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be a fair description?
Yes, it is.
And
I expect that after last night, it probably looks worse.
You know, I when I was driving through there, you know, some of these, you see, some of these, what people call spaghetti cowboy movies, with some desolate lands and a lot of wind blowing. And, well, you don't have quite the same wind, but the place looks dry and desolate with a lot of dust. That was conjured up in my mind.
Yeah.
It doesn't look good at all. And I will talk about that a little bit, about how we have to deal with the rehabilitation and the cleaning and the removal of the ash. What would you, as a scientist, and I know what I would say as a leader of the country and just as a citizen, what you have to say to one or two persons who are still in what you may call the deep red zone, that is north of Rabaca, on the northeast and north maybe of Rosebank, Peterbodell. Persons, a few hardy souls who may still be hanging around.
I will tell them, I mean, it's a mad place, it's a crazy place to be. I will tell them to get out as soon as they can. The problem I have with that kind of thing is that they're putting themselves at risk. Okay, if you want to do that, you know, to a certain extent, that's your business. But the problem I fundamentally have is that they're putting other people at risk without thinking of it. Because if, as human beings, somebody gets hurt up there or something happens, you know, what happens is that we are obliged as human beings to go and rescue them. And by doing that, we then put other people at risk. So the fact that you're not coming out because of whatever reason you're not coming out, and you think that, okay, it's my life, I could do it. What you're doing, in fact, is that you're putting other people at risk, because the fireman and the Coast Guard person who have to then come in to get you, they didn't ask to go in there. That's their job. That's what they have to do. You're putting them at risk. So I would say, you know, scientifically it's a bad place to be, because it's where all the nasty things will happen. And as a human being, you really shouldn't be doing that, because you're putting people's lives at risk. Get out, stay safe. Those places are places that you should not be when the volcano is erupting. And you should not be, because your quality of life, even if you survive, would be terrible. And there's no need for you to do that. Find some way in which you could live and survive in the south. When it's finished, you could go back.
Because, Richie, today is Sunday, but it's Tuesday, first of all, by 1 o'clock on Tuesday, that we put the country on stage 3, the alert level that an eruption is imminent. And the order for evacuation came at 4:30 on Tuesday. And we are now on Sunday. And
Yeah.
I just want to say this. Day before yesterday, the Coast Guard went to Owia, and it's a good thing that we built the jetty at Owia with that complex. We went the Coast Guard vessel, the Captain Mulzac, which is the big offshore patrol vessel, and also with what they call safe boats, so that the safe boats, which are smaller boats, can go and dock, which the Coast Guard possesses, dock and take people. Only 18 people came day before yesterday. And of course, as matters, they saw overnight, day before yesterday, that things got worse. There was more requests for us to go for them, more. And 72 came out yesterday. And we used yesterday, in addition to the safe boat, we used the Medivac vessel, which we purchased recently also. And Commander Kane was telling me that the difficulty is that the persons who are going there, their lives are at risk. I'm talking about the Coast Guard personnel. And also that the engines for the vessels can have problems, because in the same way like motor vehicle engines, and you say you got to change the oil frequently, but it could cause unnecessary damage to them. So I'm pleading with persons, please, it's past the hour to get out, and we will still have to try and get you out. I was at a shelter yesterday, and I spoke to a brother from Sandy Bay, very experienced gentleman whom I know for many, many years, Shim Batiste. He was there with a couple of his friends, and I was having a conversation with them. And Shim told me that as many as 50 persons maybe still in Sandy Bay. Well, I told him I couldn't believe that. But of course, if the numbers you're talking about in Owia, it's believable, but even though I tell him I can't believe it, because there may still be, because Sandy Bay is a bigger place, much bigger place than Owia. And we can't dock in Sandy Bay. No bus is going to go to Sandy Bay. So Commander Kane is suggesting that if anybody is in the Sandy Bay area, wherever you are, the better thing you do is that you walk or get to Owia somehow and inform us, and we will try and get the safe boats again to go with hopefully the Medivac vessel to see who remain there, whom we can take out. It seems as though the bulk of the people, probably everybody, has left down on the northwestern side of the island, but anybody who hasn't left, the same thing. But it is not so bad on the northwestern side in terms of getting to the sea access now, Richie, because that's the Caribbean side.
Yes.
But still, it's a problem. It's a major problem for those reasons which you mentioned about the risks for people who go in there to try and get you out. There's no sense in being just so individualistic and foolhardy and not concerned. We are very concerned about you, and we love you very much, and we want you to come out, and we want you to come and be in the shelters.
Dr. Robertson, Professor Robertson, sorry. One more question. I'm noticing persons are inquiring about the implications, if any at all, driving on the ash now that it's interspersed with the water.
Yeah.
Well,
Be very careful.
Richie, if I can read something which has come from Nemo. which is on the there's a text message. It is. I got it here. The time is at 7:57. It's sent out. Protect yourself from ash. Limit your driving. If you must drive, keep your distance from the vehicle in front of you and drive slowly. Keep doors and windows closed. Wear a mask or damp cloth to protect your eye and throat. If you have chronic bronchitis, emphysema, or asthma, stay inside to avoid unnecessary ash. Protect yourself. Because you noticed yesterday, when we were coming down, more when we were coming down than when we were going up. When vehicles we met coming down, they were traveling carefully and slowly. But there are a couple of vehicles when we were coming back down, they were driving fast, going up. They might have been hurried. I don't know. They might have been going for somebody or something. But it's not good for you. It humbug your own sight on the road, and anybody else on the road. It creates difficulties, and it creates difficulties for you inside of the vehicle. You put on your light because it was 2 o'clock up there in the afternoon when we were there, and it was dark.
Yes.
So we have to be very careful. And as this message says, if you don't have to come out, don't come out, and limit your driving. And what to do, close the doors and windows, wear a mask or a damp cloth to protect your eye and throat. And if you have chronic bronchitis, emphysema, or asthma, stay inside to protect yourself from the ash. Protect yourself.
Yeah, Promise, in addition to all of that, which is quite correct, I think people need to bear in mind that the ash, if it's dry, it's loose, the ash tends to be it falls lightly, so it's not compacted yet. So when you drive over it, you're compacting it and you pushing it, and therefore it raises up all that ash with it. So it might be difficult to drive on because you're kicking up a lot of dust, so you can't see. And then when it gets wet, it gets very slippery.
Yes.
So driving fast is not only a bad thing because you can't see and you're kicking out for others. Very careful when you're driving.
But even when we were driving up Byra Hill, when we left the bridge at the bottom of Byra, I said to the driver of G7, I said, just stop. Because even when you peep, you couldn't see the road.
Yeah.
And it's easy to where you have big banks like at Byra, you could easily go over. And so please, I don't know how many persons are listening to us at this time Sunday morning. A number of persons probably at church or trying to or listening to some other church service. But I'm hopeful that people are listening, and of course this would be played back.
They are listening, Prime
Oh,
Minister.
they're listening.
There are lots of persons.
One of the things that happens too, as people would say, is that the whole landscape looks the same. It's sort of what the ash does. It buries everything. So when you're driving, you're accustomed to seeing a certain hedge on the side. You're accustomed to seeing certain defined barriers.
Right.
And if you're driving or you're driving fast, those barriers are not there. It's easy for you to go over.
Yes.
Not only because the vehicle loses traction, but because you yourself oriented badly because you're not accustomed to the road looking like that. So it's really extremely important. One of the interesting things is that you tend to have sometimes more accidents from non-related volcanic hazard than from the human-induced because we are doing foolish things like that.
Okay. Richie, thank you very, very much.
Yeah.
And if there's need for us to talk later again together, the R&R show, the Richie and Ralph show, that's what I'm told. You always will have the wags, You always will have the wags. But it's the Caribbean, We have to keep the humor while we're doing our serious work.
Yes, of course.
Thank you very much, Professor, and we will be in touch. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you. You of course, the interaction between Dr. the Honorable Ralph Gonsalves and lead scientist monitoring the Soufriere volcano, Professor Richard Robertson. Prime Minister Gonsalves,
Well, there are a few things I want to say,
all right.
and then maybe you can ask me some questions. Well, I think everybody by now knows that I was out and about yesterday. I visited shelters at Richmond Hill at the Thomas Saunders Secondary School, and also at the Carriacou Primary School. And I will visit more shelters over the period of time. It is important, and I say this to all the parliamentarians. It is important that we try to visit the shelters. I also say so to persons who are in leadership positions in NEMO, in the various state entities which are engaged to deliver services to the people in the shelters. Because you get information which you get a real feel of challenges which are in the shelters. I'm not just talking about the obvious ones. Do you have enough cots? Do you have enough mattresses? Do you have enough bottled water? Is the food on time? You know, those are things which people will normally be focused on, and rightly so. And it seems as though those things are more or less in order. You may have some issues of timeliness here and there, and you have unevenness in the organization of some of the shelters. But from my standpoint, as Prime Minister, my visit to shelters, and I spent time talking to people and taking notes. There's a lot of information you get, a lot of education, and a lot of information which does not necessarily filter up to me through the normal channels, because the people themselves are doing so many things, and we all don't have time to talk in detail about a number of things. For instance, you go to a shelter, there's an old lady who is a diabetic. When she left home on Thursday, she moved so swiftly, she left her medication. She needs her medication. Somebody also, the dust is humbug in their eyes. There are persons who have a physical problem in getting to the bathroom. Now, the shelter managers are doing a good job. And the staff and the volunteers at the shelter managers clearly be a very good idea to talk and on an ongoing basis with the persons who are there, and for the persons to talk to them about the individual problems to ease the pain and hardship. And for persons like the elderly persons who there have a problem in getting to the bathroom and so on, these are people whom we can put easily in the guest houses and the hotels, where you may have more individual attention being given. So there are several reasons for the communication to be taking place inside of the shelters, and for individuals to get to in leadership positions to go and talk to persons, not to be busybodies and not to interfere with the operation of a shelter, because if you do that, you'd be counterproductive. But from the standpoint of information, and going on the road as I did yesterday all the way up, gave me a feel in a practical sense rather than just seeing images. It also made me appreciate even more the tremendous work which is being done by the volunteers and people who work at the shelters. I went out when I was leaving Carriacou to go up to Rabaka. I was there in time when the pillow was finished. And, well, I didn't want to rob anybody of the meat, but I wanted to taste the rice, and I put some pepper on it so I could eat it kind of ital. Really, they did a very good job in the cooking of it. You know, you get information which you can follow up on. Like, for instance, when I was at Thomas Saunders, a sister from Basin Hole at Bunbentic told me that William Charles had gone up back the evening before, and the reports are that he hadn't been seen and he had been presumed dead, that the ash had killed him. Well, the joy when I come in down by Basin Hole Bridge, I see some fellas in a pickup, and I heard them shouting, "William, go and pick up some clothes and come, let me take you back down." And I look, was William. I know him. Of course, we had an interaction subsequently down in Georgetown where I was waiting there when he was passing. And you get, and the gathering of information to do things and to get things done, but not to be busybodies and interfere with the operation. And so that's one thing which I found very useful yesterday, and I've given reports of all the names of persons and so on and so forth for specific challenges. And you get a lot of information through the WhatsApp and, well, not what in my case, the SMS and also the phone through various sources which come to me. And then, you go there and you meet somebody like Shembatis and who tells you about maybe there's some people still in Sandy Bay. What you do, I contact Gomri Daniel and say, Gomri has a chat network and to try to find out what is happening. And we all have to do whatever we can. We all have to be the good Samaritan on that dangerous road to Damascus. The electricity last night went and Thornley. Vinlek has done a good job in getting back, except I think he told me this morning when I spoke to him that in the Richland Park, Hopewell area, that area going up there, that they have some issues to sort out. And I want to thank the Vinlek workers who work heroically.
There are some other spots, Prime Minister, but we've since communicated that to Vinlek.
Yes.
Well, called and reported.
Absolutely. That is how we must do it. Yes. We must do it. We must do it not in a complaining way to pull down any service provider. In this time, to provide the information for us to get the corrective work done. That's the way we have to do it. In the case of water, I spoke to Gart Saunders this morning, who heads the CWSA, and I told him that all over the country there's a water problem, which he understands. And he had spoken before, and I asked him if he can call in while we are talk about this. They were trying to get up to Jennings Valley, where there's a big intake, and to get there was problems because coconut trees had fallen down. Well, the weight of the ash had broken parts of coconut trees. But they're trying to sort that out. And we're trying to get a lot more bottled water for persons. Just in case the persons up in North Leeward say that how I went up yonder, I want to go as far as maybe Belial to see if I could, or just a little beyond. I don't know if I'll get there today because I have a number of meetings, or sometime tomorrow. But because I want to get a good feel. I had discussions with the superintendent of prisons just in case we have to relocate prisoners from Belial. This thing has many parts, and the parts are moving, and you can't get flustered about it. And you yourself, I'm asking you just to remain calm, to remain focused, to remain disciplined and orderly. I expect that more persons, as the ash, if the ash is bad enough, if it gets worse, we're going to see hardly anybody remaining in Georgetown, and it is good if they could get out. And the same thing in Chester and Byra. And for heaven's sake, when you're leaving, in one or two cases this has happened, don't leave your grandmother or your grandfather. Believe me, if even you go in somewhere and your grandmother and your grandfather can't be taken there because you might be going to a private place, we have places to put your grandfather or your grandmother. Apart from the shelters, we have guest houses and hotel rooms. Remember this, we will, and even you have to bring the persons to a shelter if the person is not so well, for us to use that shelter as a clearing point. At least let's take grandpa and grandma out of danger. I'm pleading. These are practical things. Just think of doing the right thing. That's all. And you can get in touch with the various persons. And I mean, I can't deal with every individual problem.
This is Garth Saunders.
Oh, that's Garth Saunders?
Yes, Prime Minister.
Well, let's get Garth, because water is vital.
Okay, we have with us Mr. Garth Saunders. Mr. Saunders, morning. Hello. Hello. Okay, we'll try get him back
Okay,
on the line.
because it's vital he speaks to the water issue. In the region, the entities are up and running and working, and I'm not only I myself as Prime Minister, but the other heads of agencies in the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines are in touch
Stay on the line.
with the regional entities. Garth is now on.
Yes, please.
Let's hear you, Garth, and water.
Good morning again, PM, and good morning to listeners. Let me just turn the radio down. Yeah, we are just about to get into our plans for getting into the Jennings intake. So I just wanted to use the opportunity, as I told you earlier this morning, at CPM, to alert and update the general public on the situation following up my update yesterday. As you know, we were trying our best to deliver some water to areas yesterday for a period of 2 hours. This we were able to do in a large way, but there were still some pockets that did not receive water. Our critical situation, however, is on the windward coast, where the Jennings system, which supplies just about 40% of our population, is still down. And our staff are still not able to get into the Jennings intake because there are many fallen trees. And we heard Dr. Robertson talk about the pyroclastic flows and deposits that we have to go through and clear. We have to have our staff well protected,
But
and have that equipment.
just a minute, just 1 minute.
Sorry.
The ash will humbug you there in going up to Jennings, and also the trees falling. But
Yeah.
it is most unlikely that the pyroclastic flows would get there to Jennings.
Yes. Yes. Well, it's the.
But you have to be concerned about the safety of your workers.
Yes, of course, of course. Yeah. So it's rough.
But are you
and
going to get there? Are you going to get there today, you think?
Yes, we are hoping to move equipment into the area and to try to get access to our treatment plant. Once we do that, we should be able to get water back in the system fairly quickly. However, the continuing rainfall that we're having now is having an initial effect of washing the ash and some mud into the rivers, and it's producing a froth-like slurry, which we have to see that runoff first. So we are hoping that the self-cleansing properties of the rivers would act and have the water clear up to the extent that we can actually get water back in the system. And this happens not just on the Jennings side, but on all our intakes. So the rainfall, while it is good, it cleans the streets, it's causing a problem for us initially in the intake in the forest.
But let me just ask you this, Gat. I believe that every single one of the intakes for the water systems, providing water for the water systems, are interconnected island-wide, possibly with the exception of the one down at Cumberland?
There's some interconnection on most of those systems, with the exception of the fancy OE and Sandy Bay systems and the connection between the Hermitage system and the Layou system. We started that interconnection, and that should be complete.
Hermitage being the Cumberland Valley.
Oh, yes, Hermitage is the Cumberland. Sorry about that, yes.
Yeah. Well, insofar as the interconnection going in fancy Sandy Bay, we shouldn't have many persons up there remaining. So that's in a sense. And similarly, down at Hermitage, though of course Hermitage is vital.
Yes.
If you need to get any water to transport to come down to Layou or anywhere else.
Yeah, yes. But we have started that interconnection between the Cumberland system and the Layou system across the Peters Hope and Mountain area. So we are getting close.
Yes.
But the situation is that we have a problem still abstracting water from the rivers because of the quality. So we are hoping that later on today we can get a better handle on the water quality. We were able in the Pembroke area to abstract water from a groundwater well, which we are using to supply water to the shelters and so on the leeward side. So that helped out quite a bit yesterday.
No.
Yeah.
I want to say to the public what I said to you this morning, and I know you weren't doing it, but I had to tell every agency the same thing.
Yes.
Remember I said to you this morning, in dealing with this water problem, I don't want you to penny pinch.
Yes. Yes.
I know you weren't doing it, but things are difficult with resources, but the point about it is this: we have to do what we have to do to keep people safe, and we have to keep people healthy.
Yes. And I just want to appeal to the general public as well, those persons who are able to assist with transporting water to the shelters, because we are actually doing that as we speak. We have our water tenders and our vehicles trucking water, but any help that we can get, any help Nemo can get, I'm sure with very welcome.
We have enough tanks to put on the trucks?
Well, we have tanks, and we can assist if in trying to locate.
Okay, we are getting of course more tanks all the time coming in, including to put at various places, and if we can get these tanks, anywhere there's shortage, but you have enough people, you have enough staff pushing on that gap. You need any other support staff from anywhere in the public service?
Well, we have enough staff, but I think what we probably need is vehicles and trucks and persons to to volunteer, as they did quite successfully during the 2013 Christmas floods.
Well, I want to support I want to support that appeal right away,
Yes.
and I hope people with the construction companies, especially who have trucks, and people who normally move Rabaca stuff and all the rest of it, I hope they're listening. Rudy, you're hearing me? Kelly Glass, you're hearing me? And those the Franco and so on and so forth. The everybody.
Well, we were able to secure a tank yesterday, Prime Minister, for the station.
And I hope. I don't know if Patrick Ferrari has any trucks. Everybody, and contact GAT and with the tanks too.
Yeah, the contact number, the easiest contact number will be 4571445, and we will leave instructions there in terms of where the trucks can.
Say that again more slowly, GAT.
Sorry, the CWS emergency number is 4571445.
Yes.
We will leave instructions there in terms of where the trucks can go to fill up, because there would have to be specific hydrants allocated for that.
And if
in the areas.
If they don't get you.
Yes.
If they don't get you, they also could get Nemo. The other thing too, I suspect that would the fire tenders be able to get take water too?
Thanks.
I don't think so.
Okay, all right.
I wouldn't recommend that.
Okay then, fine. I just because persons may ask that. Let me just say that. Let me ask that.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Well, Prime Minister is just able to get some assistance from Carole to assist with bringing the tank to us. So that's well, because Mr. Providence called to indicate that
Fantastic.
open to do certain things. So I
Fantastic.
He would
Fantastic.
do that for us.
Anything else on the water you want to say, Gat?
Well, I think that we are hopeful that we can continue our restoration process, and we are hopeful that sometime by tomorrow we can get the system back up to about 50%, and we can get water flowing in more pipes than we presently have.
And persons must use the water
very judiciously,
very carefully.
Yes.
You have water. You're brushing your teeth. Just
use a cup.
Use a cup. Yes, and when you bathing, use less water. I know women with their curly hair and so on, when may have a problem. They want to run the water on top of their hair and so on and so forth. We will. You're beautiful. You're beautiful with it natural. Don't worry. We just have to get ourselves back in order.
Yeah.
Fine. Now, I know that in terms of the bottled water, it's thirsty water and Mountain Top are the big ones.
Yes.
Hopefully
they are listening to, and it's vital that we ensure that at least water for drinking is available at all the shelters.
Absolutely. Well, that's why I'm talking. I'm hoping the brethren who are in charge of both of those establishments are listening, and well, they're responsible persons, and I'm sure they're responding well to the best of their capacity. And we are having water coming in also, because I expect that some will come in today, and from overseas, some people who are and the Venezuelan vessel coming in tomorrow.
Yeah,
I think they're bringing some water. I think Barbados Coast Guard came in. Some more coming in. I believe some coming out from Trinidad. So people here, we need water to help us.
And I just saw someone mention an ECGC Island SIPs. They have donated water to Nemo as well.
Yes. Well, I know the ECGC where they've been getting, for instance, I was told, Storm was telling me yesterday he went down and bought a lot of water and distributed. But they had I think their supply was either running out or getting low, and they have to get new orders in. I mean, new supply in from Mountaintop, for instance, the big bottles now.
Yeah.
But these,
And Mr. PM, I just got on, a message that a trucking company, I won't call the name, but they're willing to assist with trucking water today as well. So
no, you can call their name. Call their name, man. Call their name.
Yeah.
We have to give them thanks and praise.
Yes. Sadu Engineering. That's,
Oh yes, Sadu, my brethren from Saint Lucia.
Yes.
Who doing the project up in Georgetown.
Right. Yes. So
the Sea Defense Project.
Yes.
Yes.
So we want to thank them because they're on the windward side, and that would be very easy.
Fantastic.
For them to do.
Great news.
Yes.
Let's have a national effort. That's how we have to mobilize it.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, God.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Saunders.
No, I just if Eloise is listening, I just wanted to say to her, just keep and supplying coffee to there's a personal envoy from President Maduro who came in last night from St. Lucia, and he's supposed to have a meeting with me at 9 o'clock. It's 9:20, but I'm sure she's taking care of him. You know how our Latin brothers love their strong black coffee. I'm getting there just now. You all just bear with me. I just want to talk. Well, we are working with the RSS, the Regional Security System. We are working with CAFA, the Caribbean Public Health Agency. In addition to what Richie spoke about in terms of the ash and the health issue, CAFA is dealing with public health issues to the Chief Medical Officer. Things like the CDMA. On the way here, I was talking to Liz Riley about a number of matters. CARICOM is continuing to do work. CELAC, the Community of States of Latin America and the Caribbean, to which we belong. Mexico is now the temporary president, and they have sent and we see support coming up from them in supplies. ALBA, to which we belong, and which Venezuela is and Cuba important in those, and I spoken to the Venezuelan authorities, and as I've said, a special envoy has come up. I spoke a couple of days ago to the foreign minister of Cuba. Camilo and Edmund Jackson have been, the Director General Finance and Plan, have been talking to the people at the CDB and the World Bank. I've asked the particular representatives, developmental agencies in relation to Canada, the UK, for instance, or any others, to work directly with CDMA, immediately with relief supplies. The Secretary General of the United Nations called me last evening. My brother Antonio Guterres, and the United Nations system is at our disposal. And shortly thereafter, I spoke to Didier Trebek, who is the representative in Barbados. And we're working there. We're working there together. I've spoken directly to the people at the U.S. Southern Command. We have important strategic resources. I spoke to the Foreign Minister of Taiwan. We had a good conversation and talking to them mainly about the rehabilitation and recovery aspect. There are several global NGOs, non-governmental organizations, global and hemispheric ones, that have contacted us, and we're working with them. In relation to the ash, I asked the UN rep in Barbados.
Prime Minister, we've got Tonley Myers on the line.
Tonley, let's talk Vinlec, electricity. Thanks.
Yeah, good morning, PM, and good morning, listeners. I was on earlier this morning, but I thought it's necessary to come back on because since speaking about 7 o'clock, we've had a number of other areas that have lost electricity, and I suppose we are really now feeling the impact, especially the rain. The rain is falling a little heavier now, and we have basically from Belair all the way up to the north of the country is out. We have Fountain, Belmont area, Villa, Indian Day, Caloca, Prospect, Rattlemill, Brighton. So the Windward Coast generally is heavily affected. Our team would be out there, and as usual, persons know how we do our work. But we're having several issues. For example, I've had reports of about 2 poles on fire. And you may wonder, persons may wonder, fire, why fire, how fire? And it comes back to the issue I mentioned earlier this morning with the amount of ash that you've had and the rainfall. The ash act as a conduit for electricity, and where you have that what we call high resistance part, you are likely to have fires. So we have that happening on at least 2 of our poles. We have situations where the weight of the ash has brought down trees on some of our lines. So persons, basically letting persons know that we're out there. We are aware of some of the situations that exist, and we will do whatever we could do to get power on as soon as possible. I know persons want to. Wi-Fi and the internet is important for persons these days. If they're not communicating locally, they're communicating to family and friends overseas. But bear with us. We have the generation capacity, but we have transmission and distribution lines that are being affected. And so we asking our customers to bear with us. And any issue you see there, please call our number 61540. That line might be a little blocked now with the amount of calls we're having, but we on Facebook, we on with Twitter. Send us a message and anything you see out there that would assist us in identifying some of the problems, because sometimes it's not that easy to identify a problem where you have a pole and there is a slight tracking taking place. It's not easy sometimes for a person to see that on the ground. Yeah. So
Tony, I want to on behalf of the people of St. Vincent and Grenadines thank VinLec for the work which you did last night to bring up back electricity. I know you've been on and you've spoken about it, and I know it has been a difficult time for your workers, and I want to thank them also. And I know that you're not penny pinching in doing the work. I have to let everybody know while I have you on that after the NIS, which has an asset base of $500 million, you're the next in line. You have an asset base of about 300 million of the public sector enterprises.
Well, that asset belongs to the people of St.
Yes, I know. That's
and it's been put to use.
Absolutely.
And to their service.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, brethren.
But I also want to say though that is for persons at this point in time that you don't have power, it might be advisable and smart to turn off a device that you have that is not necessarily essential. When the power comes back, you can put it back on. That would be an advisable thing to do at this time.
Excellent advice. Excellent advice.
Yeah. So if you leave, and for those persons who are evacuating, I think we mentioned that before. If you're evacuating, please turn off all non-essential appliances, and at the same time make sure that you don't leave. If you think it's necessary to leave your fridge on or something like that, please do not leave perishables in your refrigerator or deep freeze, as the case may be.
Okay, Mr. Mize, just before you go, persons are asking for the emergency number for VinLec.
61540. But as I mentioned,
61540.
That's 4561540. But as I mentioned, at times like these, you're having a lot of calls coming in, and it is likely that the number may ring for some time before you get an answer. But I think we generally, for those who are on Facebook, you can send us a message there on Twitter, and if you can't get you on the telephone line, of course, we will get that message there.
Noted with thanks, sir.
Thanks.
Thanks, Donley. I just want to indicate that there's so many persons, so many institutions, NGOs, regionally and in the hemisphere, and globally are contacting us in respect of providing supplies and the like. I have to, I've already selected someone. I haven't told the person yet. I want them to be the focal point, because somebody has to coordinate that aspect of it. Alongside with Nemo. I want to speak to the issue of the ash. I asked Liz Riley, who has been in touch with the Development Agency for the United Kingdom government, to speak to them about technical support immediately and any equipment. And we say the same thing to the U.S. authorities. And I spoke to the UN rep, because this ash for the disposal of and collection of it is vital for us to deal with. So we are trying to address that. Now, please remember that we are at the time of COVID. And everybody in the shelters, you have to keep your mask on. You have to do everything which is in order. I'm urging strongly persons to get vaccinated. I'm making the point also that we have available hotel rooms and guest house rooms for particular categories of persons, the very elderly, persons with some young children and the like, and so forth. And I just want to remind everyone that almost all the hotels or guest houses are asking that you be vaccinated. Similarly, the countries of Dominica, Grenada, Antigua, and St. Kitts would be ready early in the week, tomorrow, Tuesday, to receive persons, if persons want to go. Most persons clearly want to stay home. But if anybody wants to go, and we have a sufficient number to put on the cruise ship. But remember, those countries, even where the cruise ship may not want you necessarily requesting you to be vaccinated, even though that you'll have to be PCR tested. But to enter those countries, they're saying, because they're going to have you in large numbers there, they want you to be vaccinated. So I just want to make that point. St. Lucia is the only one who said, well, they may do it when you arrive there. But the accommodation in St. Lucia hasn't been finalized yet with the hotel. But the way things are going, we may not need more than what, for anybody who wants to go to Antigua or St. Kitts temporarily, or in Dominica or in Grenada, where they're preparing facilities just in case. I spoke to Mia Motley. Well, I've been speaking to the leaders of the region, and while I'm on the go, I spoke last evening when I was coming on to Mia Motley, the Prime Minister of the Bahamas, the President of Guyana. The President of Guyana has been calling me quite frequently. They're sending up a vessel, I think, on Tuesday with lots of water and all kind of other things. They have gotten the private sector to work with them, and they're opening a special account so that we can deal with supplies with the relief effort, because this relief effort is going to be several months. I want to make the point too that while I'm talking to certain countries, I'm also discussing the question not just about relief, but importantly, to begin the conversation for rehabilitation and support systems to be put in place. I just given an overview of that to tell you, and a lot of this has to be coordinated, and it's a lot of work on an ongoing basis. But don't forget that we are in the midst of COVID, because I'm very concerned that we can have outbreaks in the shelters and the like. This is why we have the vaccine. Let's take the vaccine. I somebody drew a joke to my attention this morning. Apparently, there was something going wrong. He's saying, "Please, Ralph, just tell the Soufriere to stop, and we all take the vaccine." It's good to see that humor is alive, but we have to keep ourselves in good spirit. But the ash is a problem. The COVID is still and remains an ongoing problem. We'll have a lot of houses to reconstruct. We have a lot to do with the farms. We have to do with animals. The reconstruction effort is going to be huge. And I'm thinking about that already ahead. And we're going to have assessments being done as to preliminary assessments as to what we may need to do. And some people are coming in to help us with some of those assessments in addition to our own people on the ground. Meanwhile, I don't know if there's any question you have for me.
Yes.
Oh, there's just something which came in here from Fitzhuggins. I'll read it. Could you tell the PM, it came on my security cell, could you tell the PM that there is a Sunwing flight coming to St. Lucia this week to pick up farm workers? We need Sunwing to bring a large supply of relief supplies. He may need to contact them to have them bring it. That is me to contact Sunwing. Well, Glen Beach, you have the contact with Sunwing. Tell Sunwing and get in touch with Fitzhuggins. I don't, and if anybody listening to me, I'm sure Simone is listening. Tell your husband to get in touch with Sunwing and tell them that Fitzhuggins wants to send some supplies and bring them down to St. Lucia, and we'll get them from St. Lucia.
Prime Minister, two things. Persons are inquiring about the status of operations in the Central Business District tomorrow, and if there's work as usual. And I think on an issue raised earlier about the evacuation in Ovia, persons are inquiring what time are they to gather in Ovia, because there are people in Point Village who have finally decided to evacuate.
Do we have anybody the numbers in Point?
No, they just asked because
Okay,
apparently
fine.
the persons were heading
All right.
there.
Well, I will talk to Commander Kane, and we'll get Commander Kane, if you're listening to me, or
Let me see if I can get him.
Officer Henry, if you could get him, or maybe Officer Henry, whichever of them. So we'll know what time they can go there. I'm really sorry that persons are still there to come. And if you're in Sandy Bay, please, for God's sake, or wherever you're there, we can't land the Coast Guard vessel in Sandy Bay. We can't, come up against, there's nowhere there. It's not a roll on, roll off. In any case, it's rough weather. I also want to say that there are a number of business persons, and I know he had called me yesterday. He's very concerned because he's from the Monbentic area, Stuart Bino. He said a good morning, PM. In the meantime, Georgetown Mall will sponsor 3 shelters. Well, I know with that they mean they'll take supplies to 3 shelters, and I suspect that 2 of them would be Thomas Saunders and the one at C.W. Prescott, because they have a number of people from that area in those. I'm not sure which the third one would be. All right, and they on thanks, Stuart. Thank you, my brother. God bless you. And I know that people are sponsoring supplies.
We're just going to get Commander Kane on the line in a while, Prime Minister, so that you
Yes,
can...
because so that we can say right away that we don't have to do the time. Again, Eloise, if you're hearing me, please keep our envoy Raoul.
And I think the other question, Prime Minister, was about work tomorrow.
Yes, I was going to answer that.
Yes.
I will. I wouldn't want to make that decision on my own right now, but sometime before the end of the day, and at the soonest possible time, I'll talk to Nemo. I'll talk to senior cabinet colleagues and others, including the Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Who is? Sorry. Oh, I thought that was Commander Kane.
Yes, we have Commander Kane for you, Prime Minister.
Ah.
I'm going to bring him on the line. Go right ahead, Prime
Commander, the man who is serving in the Coast Guard as long as Ralph has been serving. Ralph has been involved in competitive politics, and I know you know your business very well. I want to congratulate you and the officers, your team, for all work you have been doing in helping to transport persons and to marshal and oversee the transportation from the leeward side and the rescuing what you have been doing from Owia. I don't know if you were listening. There's some people from Point who have contacted the radio station to say that there's some hardy souls who finally ready to leave Point. What time you think we can go? And some from Sandy Bay who would have to walk over, as you and I spoke yesterday, or get there somehow. Whether they walk out, they go by donkey, I don't know. But what time you think the vessel, the Coast Guard, can be at Owia? We give them a time period.
Good morning, everyone. It's kind of difficult to give a time frame due to the visibility and everything to get up there, because we don't know what the best speed you can make.
Yes.
But you get the information, and presently we are trying to find out how much persons so that you can send the appropriate boats.
I know. We don't know how many persons. We don't know how many persons yet. The day before yesterday, you sent the big Mulzac.
Yes, they went up and Friday.
But that only took 18.
Yes, but who was willing to come?
Who are willing to come, and the next day we took 72. Yesterday we took 72.
Yes, sir.
Well, the point is this. You might have to send 2 safe boats and the Medivac just in case, if you don't want to send the Mulzac.
Yeah, we can send them up there, but what I'm saying, I think we will try and make this one, well, I don't want to say the final, but we will send them out the safe boats and the Medivac.
Okay, just in case.
Yeah,
well, we need to give some rough head time, and they have to appreciate that if they're at the wharf waiting in Owia, at the down by the Owia complex, that even they have to wait a little while for you to get there, but presumably you wouldn't, if they're going to be there, it's now 9:30, quarter to 10. Presumably, maybe by 1 o'clock, give them time to get there? 2?
Yeah, midday sounds good.
12 o'clock. 12 o'clock.
Give and take.
Give and take, I know. Well, they will have to understand that you have to judge the visibility and all the rest. Man, you're an angel, you know. I love you.
Thank you, Pierre.
God bless you.
Thank you, Commander. Thank you, Commander.
I don't know if there's any question. I think that my guest from the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela maybe wondering when I'm coming.
Okay, so
I think probably I've said it, what I could reasonably say. Yes, you're asking.
I think I just wanted to establish if we can book the 8 o'clock time tomorrow morning to have the same sort of interaction.
No,
with all the other
no.
stations.
Tomorrow, we would like to welcome the vessel from Venezuela
Okay.
at 9. That's supposed to come in at 8 o'clock tomorrow. I know there's a vessel supposed to also come in today. Well, that wouldn't affect. Maybe.
We can
Actually, we
treat
can
with
do it. We can do it still at 8 o'clock. We
because
can.
we can treat with it because we basically are doing 24-hour programming. So if you
We will do it at 8 o'clock.
we'll do it at 8.
We'll do it at 8. We'll make things organized in such a way. We'll tell Richie 8. And if there are any further developments,
Yes, we can also
we
do
can
that
come
later
today.
today.
We can come today.
Okay.
All right then.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister.
God bless you, and God bless St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Remember, please, be calm, be focused, be patient, be orderly, be disciplined. Be a good Samaritan on the dangerous road to Jericho. We are not a people of lamentations. We have optimism. We will survive this, and we will build back bigger, better, stronger. I want to say that we have to celebrate what we have done thus far, especially we have had no loss of lives. We have had no serious, well, as far as I know, no injury resulting from this. That has been a remarkable thing thus far with the community, the nation working together. And I want to hail up my partner, Gao, because there were rumors circulated that you didn't leave and that something was wrong with you. I'm happy to hear that you are alive and well. At least that's what it has been reported to me. I big you up, my brother Gao. This is the time when we have to reflect on your song. This your meat hard for bile. You know, it's a difficult time, but we will get over all of these challenges with God's grace. All the best to the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister Dr. the Honourable Ralph Egan Salves. Earlier on, we had Dr. Richard Robertson joining us as part of the program. Thanks to Magic FM, Star FM, We FM, Extreme Radio, Hot 97, Nice Radio, and all the other media houses, whether in St. Vincent or abroad, who carried coverage live via their social media platforms. Thank you very much, everyone. Until next, when you hear from us, stay well and safe.